Welcome to Protea Weekly, and I have the pleasure of being joined by Michelle. Michelle, welcome.
Thank you very, very much. I feel quite honored to be back so soon after our last chat. I think I'm on a winning streak at the moment.
Well, I think it's a combination of we've been talking about a bunch of things, and you always just want more of my time to talk. So I keep cutting you off on our one-to-one phone call. So this is just a way to make up for that.
Any which way, I'll take it. I'll take it. That's why I say winning streak for sure. But no, thank you, Zane. Happy to be back.
Yeah, and this is going to be week one of two. So we're going to do two videos. So you'll see Michelle 2 weeks in a row. And we're focusing a lot on AI. And I know I speak a lot about AI on this channel, and I've spent a lot of time on it. And it probably feels like it is all I talk about. But tell the truth, the world is talking about AI at the moment. It's the biggest thing happening in our lives, which there's much bigger problems than AI and the effects on the accounting industry around us. But maybe this is our way of staying sane, is something we have a little bit of control on, even though, most of the change is happening around us and we're having to adapt on the fly. And, this is not a new topic. This has been around for a few years right now. But everybody has their own pace. And this is Protea's pace in terms of where we are at the journey. We're not the 1%ers. We're probably in that 10%ers. We've been using AI for a while, but we're reimagining the way we use AI at the moment after sort of an internal pilot of using it, giving people the tools, and then stepping back and going, why are we not seeing as much AI as we thought we would see? And that's a question for Protea, and probably a bigger question for the industry at whole, right? I talk to other accountants on a regular basis, and I get all from I built my whole company on it. Everything I do is AI. I have 100 agents running to, yeah, I don't touch AI at all. I don't understand what's going on. And, this is not like I'm talking to the soon to be retired. These are conversations, and this varies between the 20 somethings to the much older somethings and everything in between. There is this spectrum in each category and each age group. So it is an interesting topic because everybody is reacting differently to it, and it's not a generational issue. It is some sort of a mind issue. I don't know if it is risk adverse, like how risk adverse they are, how much they love technology to start with. Has it got anything to do with their background, where they come from, maybe the industry they work in? I know, especially on the high tech guys, I see they use a lot more, right? Because I think the client expectation is way higher at a tech place to make sure that you're using this technology. Else, why would we be trusting you to do our books? So there's a ton of factors coming into it, and it requires a lot of conversation. Hence why I'm talking about this a lot, not just to this forum, but we've just gone through a 3-week conversation internally, 3 1-hour phone calls where we've gone through this topic. But Michelle and I, through looking at something else that we're working on, I feel like we've identified a little bit of a problem, and I think we can talk about that today.
Yeah. Yeah, Zane, just to echo what you've said, it is very interesting how you can't actually pin it to a generation. A lot of the things that we see, whether it be in the workplace or just, in society in general, you can oftentimes say, oh, that's a millennial thing or whatever the case may be. Whereas where we find ourselves now, it's not as cut and dry. People within the same households have different thresholds in terms of, like in my household, sort of on the personal thing, what we're doing, planning trips and that. I don't do much because, my wife she's on whatever, I think she uses ChatGPT, and that's how she organizes things, and it's just so interesting. Again, same household, just very different approaches. Whereas from the sort of work side, it is heavily entrenched with me, and that is sort of, as you say, it's been ingrained in our day to day. But yeah, like we discussed, I think one of the biggest issues that we're seeing at the moment that you alluded to is the element of trust. And it's, where is your comfort level sitting? And I think a part of it is, as with any change, people, I mean, that's why you've got change management and things like that. People are generally averse to change, at least approaching it, with a bit of trepidation. What I've found is that almost, I want to say, the level of mistrust is just dialed up so many notches in this AI landscape compared to anything else that we've seen. It's almost like one misstep and you're back a hundred steps. And yeah, that's been quite, I would say, one of the overarching things when you start to unpack, you know, why someone's using it, why they're not using it. And yeah, and certainly that's what we've seen.
Yeah, and it does seem to be like, if I take it like bigger picture, there's these two extremes happening out there as well. It's that the people who it makes one reference mistake for them and they're like, see, told you it doesn't work, right? Doesn't matter that they've got 9 million things right for you along the way, but one mistake, you're out. We have the others where it's like, I don't give a shit. Like, as long as it's directionally close, yeah, we go. And, I think if you go on social media right now, you'll see that. Like, there's what people are calling slop because people are just blindly trusting, AI to write their post for social media. And they're just like, one line, write a post on this, boom, and just stick it out there. Right. And like, so we've got this far spectrum where realistically we should be living somewhere in the middle where this is a great tool but as if the way you think about it, and I know this analogy gets used a lot of the time, like this is an assistant or I don't know what else you want to call it, but it's somebody that you need to train and check. Like you're the person with the knowledge. They're bringing their research findings to you, and then you have to use a little bit of thought and insight to make sure it's correct. Or, like I've said to people as well, like get it to check its own work. Tell me the references. Compare what you've told me to your references. Double check, does it make sense? Are you actually answering my question? If you notice, those are questions that you would ask an intern or an admin assistant anyway, and questions you should be asking to a human. So you have to ask the same questions to the system. Go check your work. Do a little bit of self review, cite your references. Like normal good practices have to stay in place. And I think somehow we forgot along the way that this is what it is. It's not just this all-seeing, all-knowing tool. Like it needs clear instructions, it needs context, it needs to be taught. And that's just been lost in this whole world of AI that we live in, and especially in the accounting space.
Feel, Zane, and it's something that I think from the beginning that you've spoken about, how framing it that it is a tool, and as cliche as it sounds, it is an assistant, because one of the cliches that also goes along with it, but rings very true, is garbage in, garbage out. And I think perhaps there's this misconception that it's going to tell me everything. It's going to package everything I need to know with minimal effort from my side. And if it doesn't do that, throw the whole thing away. And as you've said, much with, how would you engage with someone that was helping you? How would you engage with a more junior staff member? Would you go ahead and blindly trust them? Would you verify the information? Would you ask them, are you sure about this? And it definitely seems that sort of where we're landing now, those best practices have gone out the window. And there isn't. And that's one of the risks, especially when someone isn't well versed on a topic. And that to me, that's in particular where you just need to be more robust with your review, to draw comfort from it. And I think that is definitely, one of the bigger problems that we are seeing.
Yeah. I mean, it just is that, right? And like when it comes to the trust section, it is going to make mistakes the same way that you are going to make mistakes, right? Like it is, I don't want like it's a weird way to say it, but it's human to make mistakes.
Yeah.
And even though this is not a human, you shouldn't really think of it as a human. It is still drawing on human information. And that is something that you have to be remember. It is taught on the data that's been fed to it by a human, created by a human, and unfortunately now fed in data that was created by itself. So, it's creating a weird cycle that's coming through it.
Yeah.
But this is when checking, especially if you're using it for research, becomes so important to ask it to cite its sources because, there's a lot of sources out there that is either pseudoscience, just somebody, it could be like a parody or an ironic piece, and it's taking it verbatim like that's the facts because that article did really well and lots of people have looked at it. So it's got to
Yeah.
be true, right? So those are the things we have to take into consideration. I know one of the things, like when you're doing it, and one of the good practices, especially for research, is asking the tool, where is your knowledge from? And it will tell you like how fresh its data is. And it's like, great, well, this is newer than that. So all of your thought needs to be done by going to websites, doing web searches, right? So it changes what you're trying to do and find. And that should be a part of it as well. But it could also influence the level of AI that you're using, because all these AI tools have different levels of, is
Yep.
this high, medium, low? Like I think that's what Claude's using right now. You know, ChatGPT has the same. They all have various different models. Like how many tokens do you want to actually spend on this? Like, is this super high risk, high search? Well, then let's use the most powerful possible tool and tell it that all its research needs to come from cited websites, from trusted sources. You have to be that specific and understand what you're doing. Now, some other things, and obviously one of the things that we're digging deep into, because we're a Microsoft office, is using Copilots, and especially in building Excel, summarizing data that we already have from clients, data that that Excel spreadsheet already has information to, and now we're asking it to make it better and make us look better. But even when you ask it to do it, you should then ask it to check the formula. Or, we're on a call today, and one of the team members like, I got it to explain the formula to me afterwards because I don't know what the heck it was saying, right? Because
Yeah.
it's using these super complicated formulas that most of us have never even seen and probably would never use. So if you need to explain it to me, and if you can't explain it to me what it's doing, then let's use a different formula.
Yeah. Find
So
another way.
it makes our life easier. It can take the mundane work away, but we need to test it, try it. I've had to sometimes, I got into like a fight with Claude the other day because I wanted something in a document and they're like, no, this is contrary to what the person said to you. I'm like, no, you're taking that out of context. All they were saying is they're moving the release date to another point. It doesn't mean it's not important. We should not ignore that topic. It still has to be in this information. We're just not going to spend more time on it. We're going to go into it and be like, this is coming. There are changes happening to it. We're not going to spend more time. And it was a back and forth and be like, it's trying to protect me, right? Like it's trying to do well by me. But it's like,
Yeah.
no, that is still important. We can't just ignore, this big piece of the pie because somebody said there's going to be changes. Like, yeah, there's going to be changes, but we can say, we know there are going to be changes, but I can tell you, I am super excited about this feature or whatever, the topic you're talking about. This is not taking work away from us, but it is making a lot of these mundane tasks go a little quicker.
Yes.
And you have to test it and make sure it's correct. And if you're trusting it blindly, that's when the problems come in. Or if you're expecting it to be 100% correct, that's when the problems come in. Either direction, right? From
Yes.
mistrust or over
I think,
trusting it as
or
well.
from overtrust, which is such a strange thing because again, now we're falling on opposite sides of the spectrum. It seems so. I think probably the best way to sum it up is it's so polarizing, because you really are landing on with each person you go to. It's either, as you say, blind trust, and I'll just take whatever it kicks out. And on the other side, it's let's say one coding mistake or suggestion, and it's all of a sudden can't be used. Now, if you're looking at it in the context of, Zane, I think your level of trust would have been zero very quickly if you judged me on, one or two of the things I do daily, weekly. Didn't get that right. Okay. So I think I almost want to say, and we're not talking, it's like you say, it's not human, but there needs to be an element of grace in, what we're trying to achieve. But I also just wanted to touch on like what you were walking through now in terms of the types of conversations that you're having and the information that, sort of the knowledge that's sitting in your head when you're transferring that. That's where the work lies to get the best answer. And I think that's also a key step that is almost being foregone at the moment. I mean, you were chatting just today, in fact, about how detailed your prompts get and just how important. I mean, the more, and again, that's where critical thinking comes in, which is something else that we spoke about today. How absolutely important that is becoming now, because yes, you're not spending the time on the mundane tasks and you've got that benefit going forward where all of that sort of stuff falls away. But now you're ending up in a space where now you need to use your judgment, and you need to ensure that, are we up to speed with our critical thinking? Because that's what it's going to come down to, I believe, in terms of, is this a sustainable, is this sustainable? Is this going to give us the success we're looking for? And I think it is very much entrenched in being able to, much like a reviewer would do to another person, being able to think about the future, think about what's next, preempt what's coming, and really putting the legwork into what you want to get out of it. Which comes back to, again, garbage in, garbage out. A lazy prompt, or, sort of a lazy fact-finding mission is going to give you exactly that in terms of what's coming back. Or, as the younger folks say now, the AI slop. That's sort of what we're looking at. So, yeah, absolutely important that the time is being spent trying to get it right.
Yes, I think the takeaway here is we can't be on either, like these far extremes on either side, right? Like we can't lose trust because I got one thing wrong, and we can't blindly trust all the way, right? There's this place in between. And I think the best way to think about this, a lot of people are not going to like this, but as if you had a really smart new team member that shows that they want to work hard for you, AI is that really smart team member that wants to work hard for you. And if you can't get them to work on the right stuff for you in the right way and help you get to better results, that's more a reflection on you than it is on the tool or that person. And you need to look inside of yourself at the amount of effort you're putting in, how good your communication skills are, and also how important how good your delegation skills are. And I think in this world of AI that's coming into, communication and the ability to delegate is going to become critically important. And we'll talk about the critical thinking section as well. But poor AI results is probably a more reflection on you than it is on the tool itself. And we need to find that middle ground of trust, develop good relationships with AI, understand the best use cases for it, which is generally that busy work, and then figure out a way to use it more efficiently to be able to add value to the people we serve.
Couldn't agree more, Zane. Absolutely. Because at the end of the day, we are adding more value. I mean, that's where we're looking for the best ways to do that, and approaching it from the standpoint that it is effectively, it's a journey of learning, essentially, for both you and the AI tool that you're using. Yeah, some people might not like that, but I couldn't agree more. It really is what, it ultimately comes down to what you're putting in, and it's sort of capped at what you're prepared to put in. So acknowledging that, whilst not great, is also very, very important to sort of build it up from your side and get better. I mean, that's what we're trying to do.
That's it, Michelle. I appreciate the time this week. We'll be
Thank
back
you,
talking
Zane.
about a very specific AI use case next week. So make sure to come back and give that a listen.
Look forward to it. Thanks, Zane.